The underestimated species, the massive observation deck of Nexus Prime, stretched endlessly before Commander Sarah Chen, its crystalline walls offering a breathtaking view of the swirling nebula that housed the most important military summit in galactic history. She stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching alien dignitaries from dozens of species mingle in groups, their conversations creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonic tones that her universal translator worked overtime to decode. "Still can't believe they invited us," muttered Admiral Marcus Torres, adjusting his crisp Earth Fleet uniform. The graying veteran had fought in every major conflict since the Resource Wars, and his weathered face bore the scars of battles fought. In the vacuum of space, 5 years since first contact, and we're still the new kids trying to prove we belong. Dr. Elena Busquets, their xenobiologist and cultural liaison, approached with a datapad clutched in her hands. Her dark eyes were troubled as she glanced around at the assembled alien powers. "The preliminary assessments are in," she said quietly. "The Zephyr Council classifies our weapons as charmingly primitive. The Dominion rates our fleet strength as negligible but spirited, and the Ethereal Collective ... She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They suggested we might be better suited as a protectorate species." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. 3 years of diplomatic negotiations, countless demonstrations of human ingenuity, and they were still being treated like children playing with toys. Around them, the real powers of the galaxy displayed their might with casual arrogance. The Zephyr Council's representatives, tall, insectoid beings with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the station's lights like prisms, gestured toward holographic displays showing their plasma bombardment capabilities. Their weapons could glass entire planets in minutes. Nearby, the Dominion warchief, Thrax, a massive reptilian creature whose scales seemed to absorb light, was demonstrating their quantum torpedo technology to a fascinated crowd. His species had conquered 17 star systems through pure military superiority, and their ships could fold space itself into a weapon. The very air around him shimmered with contained energy fields that made Sarah's skin crawl. But it was the Ethereal Collective's Speaker Luminara who truly commanded attention. The being appeared as a constantly shifting pattern of light and energy, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Her species had transcended physical form millennia ago, and their psychic warfare capabilities were legendary. They could turn entire fleets against each other with a thought, manipulating the minds of their enemies from across star systems. "Look at them," Torres growled, his voice barely audible above the ambient noise. "They think we're some backwater species that got lucky enough to stumble into space travel. They have no idea what we're really capable of." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Admiral was right, of course. What these advanced civilizations didn't understand was that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology. It was their ability to adapt, to learn, and to turn their enemies' strengths against them. While the galaxy's powers had remained static for centuries, content with their technological superiority, humans had been studying, analyzing, and improving. The formal presentations began with the Zephyr Council taking the stage. Kethva, their military coordinator, stood at the center of a massive holographic display that showed their fleet formations. His 4 arms moved in complex patterns as he spoke, his voice carrying the authority of a species that had never known defeat. "Our plasma crescent formations have maintained galactic peace for 300 cycles," he declared, his compound eyes reflecting the light from the tactical displays. Each vessel carries enough firepower to sterilize a moon. Our biocoded targeting systems ensure perfect accuracy across interstellar distances. No force in the galaxy can match our coordination and destructive capability. The assembled delegates murmured their approval, and Sarah noticed several species taking notes on their various recording devices. This was more than a summit. It was a demonstration of power, a reminder of the established order that had kept the galaxy stable for centuries. The Dominion followed with an even more impressive display. War Chief Thrax's presentation filled the entire observation deck, with holographic representations of their dreadnought fleets. Ships the size of small cities moved in perfect formation, their hulls bristling with weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. The Dominion has perfected the art of warfare. Thrax's voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. Our quantum torpedoes can destabilize the atomic structure of any target. Our warriors are bred for combat, enhanced from birth to be perfect killing machines. We have never lost a battle because we understand that strength is the only truth in the universe. The demonstration continued with fleet maneuvers that defied physics as Sarah understood them. Ships appeared and disappeared across vast distances, their quantum drives allowing them to strike from multiple dimensions simultaneously. It was a terrifying display of technological superiority that left most delegates silent with awe. When the ethereal collective's turn came, Speaker Luminara simply gestured, and the minds of everyone present were filled with visions of their psychic warfare capabilities. Sarah felt the alien presence touching the edges of her consciousness, showing her fleets turning against their own commanders, entire civilizations surrendering without a single shot fired. The demonstration lasted only seconds, but its impact was devastating. Physical warfare is primitive. Luminara's voice resonated directly in their minds. We have evolved beyond such crude methods. Why destroy when you can convert? Why conquer when you can convince? The collective maintains order through understanding, not violence. As the major powers finished their presentations, an uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. Sarah realized that this was its Earth's moment to present their capabilities. To the galaxy's military leaders, she felt the weight of every eye in the room as she walked to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet. Honored delegates, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. Earth appreciates the opportunity to demonstrate our defensive capabilities. She gestured to Torres, who activated a holographic display showing Earth's fleet formations. The reaction was immediate and not what Sarah had hoped for. She heard the unmistakable sound of chittering laughter from the Zephyr delegation. One of the Dominion warriors made a sound that her translator identified as amusement. Even the usually stoic, ethereal collective seemed to pulse with what could only be described as condescension. Kinetic weapons, Kethver observed, his compound eyes glittering with what Sarah recognized as barely contained mirth. How wonderfully ... traditional. The human display showed their battleships and destroyers, armed with railguns, missile systems, and energy weapons that were centuries behind what the other species considered standard. Their ships were smaller, slower, and apparently less impressive than anything else in the galaxy. Chemical propulsion, War Chief Thrax noted, his massive head tilting as he studied the human vessels. Fascinating. We have museum pieces that use similar technology. Do you also employ solar sails and reaction wheels? The laughter spread through the chamber like wildfire. Sarah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment as delegates from dozens of species whispered among themselves, their voices carrying clearly in the chamber's acoustics. She caught fragments of conversation, Primitive, outdated, charming in its simplicity. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her voice professional despite the humiliation. Our forces have proven effective in defensive operations, she said. Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability and resourcefulness over raw firepower. Adaptability, Speaker Luminara's voice echoed in their minds, tinged with what could only be described as amusement. How quaint. One adapts to survive, but one evolves to thrive. Perhaps your species will develop more sophisticated methods given time. The dismissal was complete and devastating. Sarah felt the weight of failure settling on her shoulders as the chamber's attention turned to other matters. Earth had been given their moment to prove themselves, and they had failed spectacularly. The galaxy's powers had made their judgment. Clear, humanity was a developing species, charming in their enthusiasm but ultimately irrelevant to the greater cosmic order. As the summit continued with discussions of territory disputes and trade agreements, Sarah noticed that Earth was no longer being consulted on any major decisions. They had been relegated to observer status, allowed to listen but not expected to contribute anything meaningful to the galaxy's military planning. It was during the lunch break that everything changed. Sarah was standing alone on the observation deck, watching the nebula's swirling gases, when alarms began blaring throughout the station. The emergency lighting cast everything in a harsh, red glow as automated systems announced a developing situation. "Attention all delegates," came the voice of the station's commander over the intercom. "We have detected an unauthorized fleet approaching human transport vessels in the Kepler 442 system. All military representatives are requested to report to the tactical center immediately." Sarah's blood ran cold. The Kepler 442 system was one of humanity's newest colonies, home to nearly 2 million civilians. If pirates or raiders were targeting human transports, those people were defenseless. The nearest Earth fleet vessels were days away, and the colony's defenses were minimal. The tactical center was chaos when Sarah arrived. Dozens of alien officers were gathered around holographic displays showing the developing situation. She could see the human transport convoy, 5 massive cargo ships carrying supplies to the colony, accompanied by only 2 escort destroyers. Surrounding them was a pirate fleet of 30 vessels, a mix of stolen military ships and modified civilian craft. The pirates were a common problem in the outer systems, usually consisting of criminals and outcasts from various species who had banded together for mutual protection and profit. "The human vessels are severely outgunned," observed Kethfer, his forearms moving as he analyzed the tactical display. "Their escorts lacked the firepower to engage so many targets effectively. A tragic loss, but perhaps this will demonstrate why developing species require protection." Sarah watched in horror as the pirate fleet moved to surround the human convoy. She could see the transport ships' desperate attempts to change course, but they were too slow and too heavily loaded to escape. The escort destroyers moved to intercept, but everyone in the room could see it was hopeless. Then something unexpected happened. The human ships stopped running. The 2 escort destroyers, tiny compared to the pirate vessels surrounding them, suddenly changed formation. Instead of positioning themselves defensively around the transports, they spread out in a wide pattern that made no tactical sense to any of the assembled military experts. "What are they doing?" War Chief Thrax rumbled, his massive form leaning forward to study the display. "That formation exposes their flanks to attack." Sarah found herself holding her breath as the pirate fleet moved in for the kill. The first wave of attacks came from multiple directions, energy, weapons, and missiles streaking toward the human vessels. According to every tactical manual in the galaxy, the human ships should have been destroyed in the opening moments of the engagement. Instead, something impossible happened. The human destroyers seemed to shimmer and blur, their forms becoming indistinct as advanced stealth systems engaged. The pirate weapons passed through empty space where the ships had been moments before, their targeting systems confused by what appeared to be sophisticated electronic warfare capabilities. "Impossible," breathed Dr. Vasquez, her eyes wide with surprise. "Those are prototype systems. They shouldn't be operational yet." But the surprises were just beginning. The human ships reappeared in completely different positions, their own weapons systems charging with an energy signature that made the chamber's sensors scream warnings. When they fired, it wasn't with the primitive kinetic weapons they had demonstrated earlier. Instead, coherent energy beams lanced out from the human vessels, each shot precisely targeted and devastatingly effective. The pirate ships, caught completely off guard by the unexpected display of advanced weaponry, began exploding in brilliant flashes of light. "Those are modified plasma accelerators," Kethfer whispered, his compound eyes reflecting the light from the tactical display. "But the energy output is beyond anything we've seen from human technology." The battle was over in minutes. The human destroyers moved through the pirate fleet like death itself, their weapons cutting through shields and armor with surgical precision. Not a single pirate vessel escaped, and the human transports continued on their course as if nothing had happened. The tactical center fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth had just demonstrated military capabilities that were far beyond what they had shown during their presentation. The question that hung in the air was simple but terrifying. If humans could do this, what else were they hiding? Sarah felt a grim satisfaction as she watched the assembled delegates struggle to process what they had witnessed. The galaxy's powers had made their judgment about humanity based on incomplete information. They had assumed that what Earth showed them was all they possessed, never considering that humans might be capable of strategic deception. Commander Chen, Speaker Luminara's voice resonated in her mind, and for the first time, Sarah detected a note of uncertainty in the alien's psychic communication. Perhaps Earth would be willing to provide additional demonstrations of your defensive capabilities. Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she turned to face the assembled military leaders. The laughter had stopped, and in its place was something humanity had never seen from the galaxy's powers: respect mixed with fear. "I believe that can be arranged," she replied, her voice carrying a confidence that hadn't been there before. "But you'll need to see the full demonstration to understand what humanity truly brings to the galactic community." The game had changed, and Earth was no longer playing by the rules the galaxy expected. The real revelation was yet to come. The revelation that changed everything. The main assembly hall of Nexus Prime had been transformed into an arena of anticipation. Representatives from every major galactic power filled the tiered seating, their attention focused on the massive holographic display that dominated the center of the chamber. After the unexpected demonstration in the Kepler 442 system, every species wanted to understand what humanity was truly capable of. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the center of the arena, no longer the dismissed representative of a backward species. The events of the previous day had changed everything. Around her, the galaxy's military leaders watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed concern. "Honored delegates," Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "Yesterday, you witnessed a glimpse of human defensive capabilities. Today, Earth would like to demonstrate why we believe we can contribute meaningfully to galactic security. She gestured to Admiral Torres, who activated a complex holographic display that filled the chamber with swirling data streams and tactical readouts. But this wasn't the simple fleet formation display they had shown before. This was something far more sophisticated. "What you're seeing," Torres announced, his weathered face serious, "is the real-time status of Project Synthesis. For the past 3 years, while the galaxy has been focused on traditional military doctrine, humanity has been developing something entirely different." The display shifted, showing what appeared to be a standard human soldier in combat armor. But as the delegates watched, the armor began to change, flowing and adapting like living tissue. Components that had appeared mechanical suddenly revealed themselves to be biological, growing and shifting with the soldiers' movements. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her voice filled with professional pride. "Earth's greatest advantage has never been our technology alone. It's our ability to integrate disparate systems in ways that other species consider impossible. What you're seeing is the result of combining human biology with advanced AI systems and reverse-engineered alien technology." The reaction in the chamber was immediate and electric. Kethfer S4 arms moved in agitated patterns as he studied the display, his compound eyes reflecting the light from the holographic projections. "Impossible," he chittered, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. "Biological and mechanical systems cannot be integrated at that level. The rejection rates alone would be catastrophic." Sarah smiled, remembering the galaxy's earlier dismissal of human capabilities. "That's what makes us different," she said. "Where other species see insurmountable barriers, humans see problems to be solved. We don't just adapt to existing technology, we evolve it." The demonstration continued as the holographic soldier began to move through a complex training scenario. But this wasn't a simulation. The chamber's sensors confirmed that they were watching real-time footage from Earth's military training facilities. The soldier moved with inhuman speed and precision, his biomechanical enhancements allowing him to process information and react faster than any purely biological or mechanical system could manage. The integration process begins with genetic modification, Dr. Vasquez explained, her scientific enthusiasm evident despite the military context. "We've learned to modify human DNA to accept cybernetic implants without rejection. But that's just the beginning." The display shifted to show the soldiers' internal systems, revealing a complex network of biological and mechanical components working in perfect harmony. Neural interfaces connected directly to AI processors, while engineered muscle fibers integrated seamlessly with mechanical actuators. "Each soldier becomes a living weapon system," Torres continued, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. "They retain human creativity and adaptability while gaining processing power and physical capabilities that surpass anything we've encountered in the galaxy." War Chief Thrax leaned forward, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. "You speak of individual enhancement," he rumbled, his voice carrying the authority of a species that had conquered star systems through military might. "But warfare is about more than individual capability. It's about coordination, strategy, and the ability to project power across vast distances." Sarah nodded, having expected this challenge. "You're absolutely right," she agreed. "Individual enhancement is only the beginning. Would you like to see how our forces operate as a coordinated unit?" The holographic display expanded to show a massive training facility hidden beneath the surface of Mars. What the delegates saw there made them fall silent with shock. Hundreds of enhanced soldiers moved through complex combat scenarios, but they weren't operating as individual units. They were functioning as a single, collective organism. The AI integration doesn't just enhance individual performance, Sarah explained, watching the alien delegates' growing amazement. It creates a distributed consciousness that allows our forces to coordinate at levels that pure biological or mechanical systems cannot achieve. The soldiers on the display moved with perfect synchronization, anticipating each other's actions and responding to threats before they fully developed. It was like watching a dance of death, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Speaker. Luminara's energy form pulsed with what could only be described as agitation. This is beyond enhancement. Her voice resonated in the minds of everyone present. You have created a hybrid consciousness that bridges the gap between individual and collective awareness. The implications are staggering. Dr. Vasquez nodded enthusiastically. The AI systems learn from every soldier's experiences, creating a shared knowledge base that grows with each encounter. Every battle, every training exercise, every tactical decision becomes part of a collective memory that makes our forces more effective over time. The demonstration shifted to show actual combat footage from recent conflicts that the galaxy had never heard about. Human forces engaging unknown alien threats in battles that took place in the dark spaces between star systems. The enhanced soldiers adapted to enemy tactics in real time, their biomechanical systems evolving countermeasures faster than their opponents could deploy new strategies. These conflicts, Kethfer observed, his voice carrying a note of suspicion, they are not in any official records. When did these battles occur? Sarah exchanged glances with Torres before answering. The galaxy has been focused on known threats and established powers, she said carefully. But space is vast, and not all dangers announce themselves through diplomatic channels. While you've been maintaining the status quo, we've been dealing with problems that haven't reached your attention yet. The implications of her words hit the chamber like a physical blow. The galaxy's powers had assumed that their intelligence networks were comprehensive, that they knew about every significant threat in their region of space. The idea that humanity had been fighting wars they knew nothing about was deeply unsettling. "Show them the Void Hunters," Torres said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of hard-won experience. The holographic display shifted to show something that made several delegates recoil in horror. Creatures that seemed to be made of living shadow moved through space without ships, their forms shifting and changing as they attacked human colonies. The beings appeared to feed on light itself, leaving behind areas of absolute darkness that seemed to consume everything they touched. First contact occurred 18 months ago, Sarah explained, watching the alien delegates' reactions carefully. A deep space colony went dark, completely cut off from all communication. When our forces arrived to investigate, we found this. The footage showed human ships approaching a colony that had been transformed into something from a nightmare. The space around the settlement was filled with absolute darkness, and within that darkness, shapes moved that defied understanding. Traditional weapons were useless, Torres continued, his voice grim. Energy weapons were absorbed. Kinetic projectiles simply disappeared into the void. Even nuclear weapons had no effect. The creatures seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time. The chamber watched in horrified fascination as the human forces engaged the Void Hunters. The enhanced soldiers' biomechanical systems adapted to the threat in return, developing countermeasures that their creators had never imagined. The AI networks processed the alien threat and created entirely new weapon systems on the fly. The solution came from understanding that the creatures existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, Dr. Vasquez explained. Our enhanced soldiers, quantum consciousness, allowed them to perceive and interact with the beings across dimensional boundaries. The battle footage showed human forces using weapons that seemed to bend reality itself, creating zones of structured spacetime that trapped the shadow creatures and forced them back into normal dimensional space where they could be destroyed. We've fought 17 separate incursions, Sarah revealed, watching the shocked faces of the Galactic delegates. Each time, our forces have adapted and evolved. The Void Hunters are no longer a threat to human colonies, but they're still out there, probing for weaknesses in other species' defenses. The silence in the chamber was absolute. The galaxy's powers were realizing that while they had been content with their technological superiority, humanity had been quietly evolving into something far more dangerous than they had imagined. Kethva was the first to speak, his voice carrying a note of respect that hadn't been there before. You have been protecting the galaxy without our knowledge, he said. While we maintained our territories and traded resources, you were fighting threats that could have destroyed us all. That's what humans do, Sarah replied simply. We don't just survive, we make sure others can survive too. But we've learned that sometimes the galaxy needs to be protected from itself. The demonstration continued with revelations that left the delegates speechless. Human forces had been secretly monitoring and countering threats that the galaxy's intelligence networks had never detected. Ancient AI systems awakening in dead systems, viral organisms that could consume entire ecosystems, and predator species that hunted civilizations for sport. The question, Torres said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen too much combat, is whether the galaxy is ready to work with us as equals, or whether you prefer to continue believing that your traditional methods are sufficient. War Chief Thrax stood slowly, his massive form commanding attention. The Dominion has prided itself on military superiority for centuries, he rumbled, his voice carrying genuine humility for the first time. But what you have shown us today demonstrates that true strength lies not in domination, but in evolution. The Dominion formally requests alliance with Earth's military forces. The statement sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Dominion had never requested alliance with anyone. They had always demanded submission or conquest for their war chief. To request partnership was unprecedented. Speaker Luminara's energy form pulsed with complex patterns of light. The collective has observed the development of consciousness for millennia. Her voice resonated in everyone's minds. What humanity has achieved represents a new stage in the evolution of intelligence itself. We would be honored to learn from your methods. One by one, the galaxy's powers began to understand what Sarah had been trying to tell them. Humanity hadn't just developed advanced military technology, they had become something new, something that transcended the traditional boundaries between species, between biological and mechanical, between individual and collective consciousness. Earth accepts these offers of partnership, Sarah announced, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had watched impossible things become reality. But understand that working with us means accepting that the galaxy is far more dangerous than you've realized. We've been shielding you from threats that could end civilization itself. The summit ended with the signing of agreements that would reshape the galactic power structure. Earth was granted not just membership in the Galactic Council, but a leadership role in defending against threats that traditional military doctrine couldn't handle. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Sarah reflected on how far humanity had come. 5 years ago, they had been alone in the universe, struggling to understand their place among the stars. Now, they had become the guardians of galactic civilization, protectors of species that had once dismissed them as primitive. The galaxy would never laugh at humanity again. They had seen what humans could become when they stopped limiting themselves to conventional thinking. And in the dark spaces between stars, ancient threats stirred. Drawn by the new power that had emerged in the galaxy, the real war was just beginning, and humanity was ready to fight it on terms that no one else could have imagined. The age of human ascendancy had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.